He was a battle-hardened veteran who killed countless enemies on the battlefield and earned military honors for his country. After retiring, he received neither the respect nor the benefits he deserved. Instead, he lived in a derelict, abandoned car, barely scraping by, and fell into drug addiction. This is Baker, a forgotten veteran abandoned by his country, a pitiful soul cast aside by his own father. The death of his sister became an indelible pain in Baker's heart. He couldn't attend her funeral. Baker's life had been stagnant, like dead water, without a ripple. Then, his friend Will brought shocking news that shattered years of Baker's despair. The local crime boss, Carl, who ruled with an iron fist, was released from prison. That name instantly pierced Baker's heart. Carl was the man who killed his sister. Forced by circumstances, Baker's sister became a dancer in Carl's territory. 3 years ago, she was caught in a gang conflict, and Carl suspected her of stealing his money. He ordered 3 men to assault her and filmed it as blackmail, but Baker's sister insisted she'd never seen the missing money. Losing patience, Carl shot her dead, landing him in prison for 3 years. Now, hearing Carl was out, Baker's rage for revenge erupted. He couldn't hold it back. He went to the black market, spending his last money on a dagger. Its blade gleamed coldly, echoing the hatred burning inside him. Meanwhile, Carl, freshly released, was unaware of all this. As the former underground king who ruled the area with an iron fist. After getting out, he found almost all his former business taken by underlings. Everything from old days vanished without trace. Carl couldn't accept this. He confronted a former subordinate, demanding to know why he hadn't visited him in 3 years. The subordinate was flustered, explaining he'd been busy with business, trying to make money for Carl to enjoy once out. This only made Carl angrier. He knew perfectly well how much this guy had pocketed, and he couldn't be bothered to listen to more excuses. He pulled out his gun and swiftly took out 2 guards. The underling across from him was terrified, barely able to speak. But Carl wasn't satisfied. He grabbed the guy by the head and slammed it down. He finished the man with a single shot. Then, he contacted the corrupt cop. 3 years prior, the cop promised he'd only be inside for a year, but he spent 3. The cop also took part of his territory. Confronted, the man claimed it was to make money for him. Plus, Carl got out in 3 years because he pulled strings, which cost money. Though Carl was pissed, he didn't dwell. He needed people, so he wanted the cop to find someone to work. Unexpectedly, the guy called the underling who stole his business, and that guy's phone was in Carl's hands. Since that's how it was, no reason to keep him.
My money, you treated me like a... just like a snake?
Baker, in his car, stared at an old photo, memories flooding him. Suddenly, he felt nauseous, got out, and dry heaved. Feeling better, he saw Will approaching, trembling, clearly in withdrawal. Kindly, Baker got him water. He wanted to know how Will ended up like this, but Will seemed unwilling to discuss the past. Baker didn't press, taking the initiative. She remembered the past, from military service to abandonment by her country, from giving her all to being kicked out of her home, from her sister's murder to her own addiction. She hadn't seen her sister. For revenge, she started to kick her bad habits. Will thought Baker's sister wasn't worthy of sympathy. She sold her soul for money. Baker didn't mind, after all, her own flesh and blood. After 3 years of investigation, her sister had been wronged. She wanted to use her experience to help Will. But Will didn't seem to appreciate it, choosing instead to quietly turn and leave. Baker didn't say anything more about it and began her own plan for revenge. To ask around, to figure out who was so reckless and bold, and reminded him not to kill anyone. He still needed these dancers for money. The first person the bearded man thought of was Xiaoya. When Xiaoya got the call, she thought it was business, but seeing it was the bearded man, her heart sank. Free. But all his efforts were in vain. He tried to pin the man down, but the guy had a rock-solid stance. After taking a few heavy punches, Baker had no choice but to give up. The man thought Baker was done fighting and wanted to humiliate him. Suddenly, Baker strained strength to swing his fist. Though he struck Baker, his blows grew weaker until he collapsed in blood. Baker drew his blade across the man's throat, ending the brutal fight. Covered in blood, nearly spent, Baker lay gasping for breath before struggling to his feet. Carl came downstairs. When he saw Baker in blood, he was scared, grabbed a baseball bat, and bolted out the door. By the time Baker gave chase, Carl had disappeared deep into the alleys, and the two began a pursuit through the buildings, bursting into the wild outskirts. Baker stumbled, mud and blood smeared on his face. Carl approached with a grin, the camaraderie twisted into madness. He raised the bat, ready to